Hello guys, Miss A again. Making this video here for ordering rational numbers. So putting numbers in order from least to greatest, greatest to least, whatever it may be. And rational numbers can be anything: fractions, decimals, percents, improper fractions, positive numbers, negative numbers, a little bit of everything. So this actually is going to tie into one of your activities from your choice board. So on your choice board here under the equivalent and ordering section, A1 says on your own paper, put the following numbers in order from least to greatest. So that's actually what this skill is. Once you put them in order from least to greatest, it's basically on a number line for you. So it's not too difficult. So we're going to put numbers like this in order. You can see here we have a mixed number, a fraction, a negative decimal. This was a negative mixed number, whole number, and an improper fraction. Oh, sorry. So we're going to be looking at all of those. So one thing this is going to be very similar to was my video that I put for comparing rational numbers. We came up, or I showed you these 4 steps. Ignore this part, sorry. Our 4 steps for comparing or ordering rational numbers. Step number 1 was to convert every number into a decimal. I personally think decimal form is the easiest one to compare in. So I always make everything into a decimal. Step 2 is going to be line up your new decimals on top of each other, one on top of the other. Step 3 is going to be to add zeros or repeating digits so that all numbers have the same place value. And then finally, step 4, you can compare and then put them in order from least to greatest or greatest to least. We did this on a video posted, I believe, week before last. So this one I've already gone over. You might want to pause the video, take the time to write this down so you have it to refer to. As long as you follow these 4 steps, it makes it a little bit easier to put them in order, okay? So let's get started. So here is our first example. Now, for both of the examples we worked on today, we're going to put them in order from least to greatest, okay? Every single time, least to greatest. So here are my numbers. And just like my steps just said here, step number 1 is going to be to convert every number into a decimal. So you can see here we've got a mixed number, fraction, decimal, whole number, and an improper fraction. So one of them is already in decimal form for me. I need to convert them all. So we are going to start off with some of the easy ones. This one's already done. So I'm just going to put over here. And I'm going to go ahead and rewrite these numbers. And when I make them into decimals, I'm going to put them over here because that's going to get me step number 2 already done because I'm already going to line them up. So I'm going to start. I'm going to put negative 3.5 here. 3/5, kind of space them out just a little bit. 3/5, negative 3 and 25, 3.25, negative 3 and 25 hundredths, 7, and then 17/4. So our first step is going to be convert each of these into a decimal. So we're going to put equals, 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 equals. Now, obviously, this one's already in decimal form for me, so that's easy. So I'm going to write it over here. Make sure you write them kind of spaced out. Don't put the numbers too close together because you want to keep your place values separated. Negative 3.25. That one's already done. 7 is really easy to make into a decimal. 7 is a whole number, so all you have to do is put 7.0. Notice how I'm lining up my decimal and I'm lining up my place values as I place them, okay? Because like I said, that's getting step number 2 done for me as we work along. Now we need to get into these. So before I get to this one, I'm going to do these regular fractions because, again, I've already made a video showing you how to change a fraction into a decimal. So we're going to do 3/5 and 17/4 first. I'm going to do the work right here. I'll do it. Oh, my son took my pens. Sorry. All right, so let's do 3/5 first. So remember, whenever we're changing a fraction into a decimal, we need to remember either cowboy method or Tybo. And I personally like Tybo. I think I have it here. So these two. I'm going to do Tybo. Top in, bottom out. Top number goes in, bottom number goes out. So we're going to do that for these 2 fractions. So top number 3 goes inside, bottom number 5 goes on the outside. And now we're going to do the division. 5 is bigger than 3, so I'll put a 0 that doesn't go in. Put a decimal and then a 0, and don't forget to drag that decimal up. 5 goes into 30 6 times. Get a remainder of 0, so we're allowed to stop. There's nothing else to bring down, and once you get a remainder of 0, you can stop. So 0.6. So that was 3/5. So right here, I'm going to stick with black because my pink marker is going out. 0.6. So again, I'm going to line them up here. 0.6. So everything's lined up. All right, so that one's done. Now we're going to flip down here and do the 17/4 first. Top in, bottom out. Remember, top number goes in, bottom number goes out. All right, 4 can't go into 1, so I can put a 0. 4 can go into 17 4 times, which is 16. Subtract. 7 minus 6 is 1. 1 minus 1 is 0. Don't even need it. But I got a remainder and there's nothing else. So remember, we have to add a decimal and then a 0 because that does not change the problem. So put a decimal and a 0 and then drag that decimal up. 0 comes down. 4 goes into 10 twice, which is 8. Subtract. 10 minus 8 gets me 2. Add another 0. And then 4 goes into 25 times. Got a remainder of 0. I can stop. So 17/4, 17/4. After we converted that into a decimal, we got 4.25. And make sure we line up. 4.20. Papers move in. 4.25. Okay. Now we have one more fraction left. -3.5. So one thing people is the fact that they get confused because it has that whole number in the front. Guys, don't make it any harder than it needs to be. Whole numbers go in front of the decimal. So before we get into doing any division, which we know we're going to have to do because it has the fraction, just put that whole number, -3, in front of the decimal. So right here, we're going to have -3 point, okay, because that was there. Now all I have to do is Taibou 1/2. So you could literally Taibou, top in, bottom out. But whenever it's 1/2, I want you to think of a dollar. How much is half of a dollar? 50 cents. So you can put 0.50. Okay, or you could also just put 0.5. I'm putting the 0 because I know I'm going to need it. Okay, so step 1 was to convert everything into a decimal. That's done. I kept them here beside it so I know what the original form was, because when we put them in order, we don't want to put them in this order. We want to put them in the order that was given to us. Okay, so make sure you have them beside it. So convert everything into a decimal. Step 2 is to line up your new decimals on top of each other, which again, we've already done because I knew I was going to have to do that. Step 3 is going to be to add zeros, or if the digits repeat, put the repeating digit so that all numbers have the same place value. So if we look here, we've got 2 numbers after the decimal, 1, 2, 1, and 2. So the most was 2. So all I have to do here, because there's no repeating bar, I put a 0. That one already had it. Here, just put a 0. And now that they're all the same, now I can literally forget about place value and just focus on the number. I've got -350, +60, -325, 700, and 425. Now I know it's not technically what the numbers are because this is really 4 and 25 hundredths, but by making them all have the same place value, we can order them a little bit easier, like put them in order easier. So we are putting them in order from least to greatest. I had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 numbers. So I'm going to put 5 blanks. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is how I personally do it. Least to greatest. Now, obviously, my smallest numbers, my least numbers are going to be my negatives because I have 1, 2 negatives, and then I had the rest that were positive. So these 2 numbers have to go in the first 2 spots because they're the least. Negatives are always smaller than a positive. Now, negatives are tricky. Now, on a number line, let me bring up my number line so I can show you. Where's it at? On a number line, when you have negatives, the farther away it gets from 0, the smaller the value is actually getting. So -4 is smaller than -1 because -1 is closer to 0. So whenever we're looking at this number, when we're looking at -350 and we're looking at -325, we have to think about, on a number line, where would -350 and where would -325 be in relation to 0? So we're looking for least. The least negative is going to be the one farthest away from 0. So -350 or -325. -350. But I'm not going to put that number here. I'm going to cross that off because we're using it. But I'm going to put the number that was originally given to me. -3.5. Okay, that's the number farthest away from 0. Then a little bit closer to 0 would be the -325. So I'm going to cross that one off. That number was -3.25. So I can put it there. Boop. Now we get the positive. So this is pretty easy. Again, we're going least to greatest. So my positive numbers, I have 60, 700, or 425. My least of those is 60. So I'm going to put 3/5. Then my smallest number now is the 425, which was 17/4. And then my greatest one is the 700, or 7.00, which was 7. All right, that's all you do. Remember the 4 steps. Convert everything into a decimal, line up your new decimals, add the zeros or repeating digits, and then you can compare them. Make sure on your negatives you pay attention that the negatives, the farther out away it gets from 0, the smaller the value. So that's the least. I'll go ahead and do, just because I had an example already ready, I'll go ahead and do one more example if you feel like you need it. And let's write these down. Again, we're going to go from least to greatest just to keep it similar. So -4 1/5. I'll try to go through this one a little bit quicker, not do all the extra little things. -3/4, -0.5, 4, 19/4, and then 4.3. Okay, so again, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to list them all on the side, and I'm going to put a spot so I can line up the decimals over here. So we have -4 1/5 equals -3/4 equals -0.5, 4, 19/4, and then 4.3. And we can see here we actually have a couple of them that are already done for me. So I'm going to go ahead and write those down, and I'm going to line them up over here on the side. -0.5. 4 is good. I can just put 4.0. I'm lining them up as I go. And then the 4.3. 4.3. Another one that's actually kind of easy is this one, 3/4. Now, obviously, we know it's going to be negative because the fraction was negative, so I can put my negative here. And then whenever it has the denominator of 4, I want you to think of quarters. 3 out of 4 quarters. That would be 75 cents. So I can put 0.75. All right, so most of it's done. All I got to do is the mixed number, and the improper. Let's worry about this one first. -4 is in the front, so I know my decimal is going to start with -4 point something. And all I have to do now is tie-bow the 1/5. So top in, bottom out. 5 can't go into 1. Decimal on a 0. Bring the decimal up. And then 5 goes into 10 twice. Got a remainder of 0, so I can stop. So my decimal is for -4 1/5 is -4 point, and then we put a 2. And then the last one is 19/4. Top in, bottom out. 4 can't go into 1. 4 can go into 19 4 times, which is 16. Subtract, we get 3. Put a decimal and a 0. Decimal up, 0 down. 4 goes into 30 7 times, which is 28. subtract, you get 2. Add another 0 because we still have a remainder, and then 4 goes into 25 times. Then I got a remainder of 0. So once I have that, then I can stop. So 19 over 4 equals 4.75. So you can notice here that I've already got all my decimals lined up. Step number 3 is to add zeros or repeating digits. Didn't have anything repeat, so look at my decimals. I've got 1, 2, 1, 1, 2, and 1. So we need to make them all have 2. So put a 0, a 0, a 0, and a 0. And now we can move on to step number 4, which is just to compare them and put them in order. Again, we're going least to greatest. I had, 6 numbers this time? So I can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We're doing least to greatest. Let's start with the greatest ones because those are the easy ones. We've got negative, 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 and then these are all positive. So I know my positive numbers have to be these greatest ones in the front. I love this. I didn't even realize. Okay, so my greatest ones have to be the 3 positive numbers. So we have 400, 475, and 430. So obviously the greatest one is the 475, which we're not going to put that number because, again, we want to put the original form. That's the greatest. So I'm going to put 19 over 4. And then now we have the greatest one left. We'll go here would be not 400, but 430, which is the 4.3. These are almost in order as I gave them. And then the greatest one now is 400, which was 4. Now we get into the negatives, which makes it a little bit tricky. So we're, again, working a little bit backwards. So we're looking for the greatest one of the 3. This is the least. This is going to be the greatest of the negatives. So the greatest negative is actually the one closest to 0. So which one's going to be closer to 0? Negative 420, negative 75, or negative 50? Negative 50 is the closest. So we're going to put that one as negative 0.5. And then the one a little bit further out from 0 would be negative 0.75, which is negative 3/4. And the one farthest away from 0, making it the least value, is negative 4.20, which was negative 4 1/5. All right, so I really do think that if you can just convert everything into a decimal, and again, go back and watch those videos that I posted week before last, I believe it was, of how to change a fraction to a decimal. If your numbers have percents, how to change a percent into a decimal. Anytime you want to order numbers, you have to put them in decimal form first. That's the easiest thing to do. So convert them into decimals, line up the decimals, add your zeros so they all look the same, and then you can forget about place value and decimals and all that stuff and just focus on the number. Biggest number, smallest number, greatest number, whatever it may be. All right. Hope these examples were helpful. Like always, guys, sometimes it might be helpful to go back and rewatch them a second time. Do the first time, just watching and listening, and then try to do it on your own. Replay these as many times as you want. Don't forget to subscribe and press that little bell so you can get notifications of when I post new videos. All right, guys, y'all stay safe, stay healthy. See y'all later. Bye.